Hi, it's Susan from World Peacefull, and I'm going to read you some poetry tonight. I was sort of feeling moved or inspired, if you like, to communicate, and it arises out of watching the news, the world news, where the media took me to Palestine, Israel-Palestine, and I saw the Bedouin being moved on. And I saw their incredibly impoverished shacks. And then I'm hearing that some Supreme Court judge allowed for the demolition of these people's homes because they didn't have permits. When I sort of, in a sense, move away from all that legislation, all the rhetoric, what I see is poor people living in substandard dwellings who have an uncertain future. Other segments on the news tonight were to look at those in Yemen. There was a peace march in the streets, and the images brought through the television were of people who had been killed. So many people had been killed. I thought of the arms industry. I thought of the great sort of divisions between those engaged in the business of arms, so removed from those who really suffer on the ground, and the radicalization that occurs as a result of poverty, lack of education, funding and fueling hatred and division. And those who find justification for this, I sit with it. And then was shown again through this screen the unrest in the United States, given a recent protest of a footballer and Nike's advert that just came out, which was really reflective of raising the voice of. I don't use the word black myself because I don't see them as black, but let's just say African American, people from an origin of Africa, which connects to the great poverty over in Africa and their challenges that they face. And I was just really interested in how people burned their shoes because someone bent on their knee to send a message about a problem that's still not solved in the United States because it's not been resolved. I'm a peacemaker myself, and what message I keep trying to send to people is that you have to resolve conflict. It's not good enough for it to be lip service. There has to be somehow a way to bring people together to really come to understand that the other is yourself. And if you were in their shoes, as Jane Elliott, who was a Texan educator, tried to convey through her teaching of young children, what it's like to be ridiculed and put down and someone to think of you by the basis of your color that you're going to go and steal, without any recognition that those who have stolen, particularly those who are coming from very poor areas, are really reflecting the impoverishment that comes from inequality. And of course, inequality came up today for me in some information that was sent to me. Homelessness here in Australia, unemployment, poverty. We, of course, have a very multicultural society. I've grown up with no issue with people from any nationality because that's normal for me, is to see everybody like myself. When I traveled the world, I saw every country as my country. I saw myself as family. When I clowned and hugged everybody, there was no discrimination whatsoever within me at all. Nothing. The only thing I was interested in as a clown was whether they were smiling or not. And even if they weren't, I was still going to honour that anyway. It wasn't my job to make them happy, it's their job. So it's very hard for me to understand racism. But I know that there's prejudice within each of us. Whenever we move away from people, whenever, there's very subtle exclusions that happen because of judgments that we're making without having even talked to that person. And that's a real tragedy for our societies around the world that we're like this. And it all comes from a base of fear. So until we overcome our fear, prejudice will remain. But thankfully, through more and more diverse people, becoming famous or, having some form of profile, maybe through sporting events or through movies, maybe we get to know each other a bit better. And through that connection, maybe then we can find peace with one another. But the true peace, of course, as I've always stated in my work, comes from within, is to deal with your own insecurities, your own fears. See, Trump comes to my mind, and he talked about Nike being killing Nike, and I found those words very concerning for a head of state, unaware that those words, or perhaps he was aware, I'm not sure, that the words he was saying could incite violence. Why would one want to incite violence? He had a sort of a viewpoint that was, he seems to be very intolerant to anything outside of his worldview. He's very black and white, which is an interesting term. He'd obviously be the white and the black and white. I remember a friend of mine who's from another country. He painted a chessboard. He was a brilliant artist, and it was obviously black and white checkers in this chessboard. But what he had was the black part of the chessboard was actually holes. And he had a man with gloves, black gloves on in the painting. And the black gloves represented the evidence that this man had dug the hole. In this case, it was to do with gender, and it was in respect of a country where women were seen as chattels. But he also saw the strategic game being played out, which was why he used the chessboard. He himself was not racist at all. He was not prejudiced. He was not sexist. He was a very, very amazing man. Very, very gentle person. And the most brilliant artist I've ever witnessed. His work, in my opinion, was far greater than Salvador Dali. And he was raising many issues due to the great impoverishment of his own country. He'd seen conflict, he'd seen murder. He'd never shot anyone himself, yet he was a soldier. He used to shoot over their heads because he saw their mothers' faces in their faces. He was a peacemaker. It was really wonderful, watching him move through life. He was never unkind to anyone. And even if he was confronting racism, he was very gentle in his approach. So I was very fortunate to have met him. So I'll read you my work. It's a post that I posted in September 2016, so it's 2 years old. And it's called What Truly Makes a Difference in Life. Dishonesty is to lie to yourself. Honesty is to live for yourself. The truth is what sets you free to see who you really are. When you truly see people, you are living in the truth. And I've written a hint is no one is unacceptable. The poem's called To Truly Make a Difference is to be or not to be honest. To truly make a difference is to be brave enough to be different. For greatness is not in receiving prestigious accolades. Merit is not found in lofty intellectual achievement. It is flowered in the sun of your evolving humanity. For this is the only sanity that shines, that lives in dreams, that really comes true. Every person deserves to live in dignity. Every person yearns to be treated with respect. All elect happiness, to never coil, to feel less, to unfurl sails, to be fearless. For civilization is not cultivation. Elation is the winds in creation. For no person created themselves. All are born to die on time. Peace is not a fanciful notion. Its current carries you on an infinite ocean, into an impossible dream. For impossible staircases defy logic. To dream that another world is possible and live it until it materializes, realizes real hope is the essence of true value. For I cannot treat any person with indifference as they exist. To say their life is not significant when it is. To know every moment draws a magnificent sunrise, resurrecting a surreal life. Revealing the genuine face of compassion serves humanity. To know the only sanity is in human kindness, seeing itself in the other. For I have travelled along many valleys and hilltops, traversing the contours of life in search of spiralling freedom. As life is a canvas upon which paint illuminates fate, I select bright colours or dull given the scene. Positive or negative space opens to what is unseen. To choose water, acrylic or oil serenades the scene. I feel for the beauty within, what is bland to understand reality. For I am seeking to chisel the angel from the hard stone with inner sight. I am liberating the message from an inhospitable landscape. I am leaving deep impressions as footsteps on shifting sands. For the sands in the hourglass tell me 1 minute to midnight. As life is the masterpiece, hidden beyond time and space. Poetry is the music of the spheres that feels for the edges of second sight. Life is an immeasurable gift that lives you as the kite. For the truth sets you free from conformity. It forces you to decide, to either sink or swim. It faces you with Land's End, as the end of the world or a new beginning that you must choose, to be or not to be in honesty. For dishonesty is to lie to yourself. Truth is the only question, opening to infinite possibilities, worth living for. Interestingly enough, my introduction talked about this friend. I actually didn't read the poem before I published it in this moment. that's how I live my life, you see. I get an inspiration and I think, yes, that feels right, so I just quickly go with it. My introductions are never planned. Nothing is planned when I produce my videos, because I'm a great believer in peace is our true nature, which means I don't need to prepare anything. All wisdom resides within us, and if I'm able to, what I call, recline in the Buddha, I'm not a Buddhist myself, but I am very much in harmony with Buddhist philosophies, or any philosophy that actually flowers peace within. I feel the reclining into that image of Buddha is a very accurate statement of resting in the truth. It's not a forced thing. It's like what I said in my previous video, it's like a wellspring. You just let it bubble up. There's no need to hide anything. We live in a world of great diversity. People are very fearful of change. They're very fearful of difference. I heard someone say tonight about resolving the differences. That's another poem I wrote. Until we can truly resolve inner conflict, our work will not be done in the world. Peace will not occur until we start to look at ourselves. It's very hard for those who have made big investments in industries that really hurt people or kill people. They're the ones with a very big responsibility to make decisions. I've definitely made sacrifices in my own life for truth. I now live in a homeless capacity. I live without money. And I do this because living in integrity is more important to me than the money. I've had points in my life where I've been tested. In one case, it was the opportunity to do research for a club who wanted to find out about high rollers. They wanted me to do the research to find out how I could get them, through research, to reveal their patterns of behaviour so that the club could encourage them to gamble more. I remember at the time I had $20 in my account. Partner at the time was encouraging me to do it, but I didn't. I chose to have no money. So I said no. Another story which I have talked about on my blogs before is when I was being offered a job to commercialise scientific technology. I was a market analyst at the time, and my career was on the verge of taking off because I was giving public talks about market research, and I was affiliated with some prominent people at the time. And so this job came up, and it was in essence to do that. But the deeper problem that I faced with this was it was to commercialise genetic engineering. And of course, GMOs I don't have a resonance with, in the sense that I know that we're altering 4 billion years of genetic code, which has not been formulated for the purpose of commercial sales. Nature has nurtured the genetics in order to harmonise it with Earth systems. Because I'm into peace, I wasn't at the time actually, but I obviously had a base of that integrity in any case. So I had to make a decision to actually decline the job on the basis of not lending my energy to something that I felt in the future could harm life. I am an advocate for life. I honour all life. I see all life as equal. Even the animal life I see as equal to myself, and I treat them like I would a person. I see great intelligence. So that is my approach to making a real difference in the world, is to see it in its true light. I honour every person. Everybody is worthy. Not one person is superior to me or unequal. We're just different. So with that, I thank you very much for listening and watching. May peace become your true nature, as it is mine. Take care. Bye.